of the weapons that got patched. A lot of people would say that they get nerfed, the dueling shields that I'm speaking about, although I would lean forward a little bit more onto the side of they actually did fix a bug. And the bug was when essentially the core of everything with the dueling shields is that you can attack, and if you time properly your attacks, at the same time you are guarding. So if the enemy attack connects while you are attacking and the shield animation is up, you still retain that guard that you're doing with the shield. What was the bug? Which was actually a bug. The stamina damage that you would take with the shield would be less than if you would be doing like a regular block. So of course, like, the downside of a dueling shield is that you can't have everything in this kind of games. It would be just too overpowered. It was too overpowered. It was too broken because it was actually broken on itself. And the thing is that whenever you would receive damage to the stamina, it would still be less the damage that you would receive to the stamina while you were doing a regular block. So yes, by all means, that was a bug. That being said, now that they patched it, is the shield unviable? Is it not fun to use anymore? Is it not usable anymore? Well, the thing is still very overpowered. I would even say that it's still to some extent broken. So overall, the whole idea of this is that you have to time properly your attacks so that they match in between these dents, these vaults that you have with the boss, against the attacks that connect at the same time that you're doing yours. The downside is that if you abuse it too much, you can get staggered, or you can like get knocked out of that animation when you're guarding your shield, when you're using your shield to guard against the enemy attacks. And yes, by all means, that's something that can still happen, but it's still a very safe way to play. Now, the good thing about the shield is that it has a decent amount of damage, like a really decent amount of damage, but for some weird reason in the universe that I just can't understand, it has huge, and I mean huge poise damage. So in just a couple of hits, you are going to be staggering everything that you have in front of you. So it's just that this shield has everything, dude. If you attack like relentlessly with the shield at the same time, sometimes the enemy is going to connect one hit or another against you, but it's not going to happen often because the frames that you have the shield pulled up, it's ideally more often than not, as you can see right here, it's just a spam fest that you can do while at the same time staggering the enemy, because you can also add Ashes of War to your shields. So you can use something like Crackblade, which we will be using in this shield, and it just becomes a monstrous little something. Let's talk about the build and the stats. This is a quality build, but by all means, for example, the Carian shield, you can build it with different things. Once you have the shield at 25, it's going to have a guard boost of 70. That being said, a quality build that we have right here, this reaches a total of 650 AR and base damage, and a total of 1.5k damage in the DLC once you have your Shadow Tree fragments. That being said, it really is not that bad at all. You are going to need the requirement for intelligence for 15. That is going to allow you to use the vigor at 60, the endurance at 28, and you're not going to be using any mind at all, like whatsoever. We'll talk about that in a little while. So the shield, like I mentioned, it has a total of guard boost of 70, which is really flipping good. It weighs a little bit, it weighs 10 pounds, but it's not that, nothing like too heavy, because at the end of the day this is going to be your main weapon, the only thing that you'll be using. At the end of the day, you don't need like a sword or anything else, because this is just everything. Like, so it is a little bit weighty, but you have more than enough endurance to be able to use some kind of heavy armor to bypass that 51 poise threshold. In this case scenario, I'm using Relentless's armor because of the Carian shield, and then I'm using the gauntlets and grips of solitude. This right here, as it is right now, and if you remove the shield, the headpiece that I have right here, this right here, this allows you to have that 51 poise threshold that you need, so that you do not get staggered by everything out there in the world. The Talisman synergy is actually very interesting and one of my favorites. These 3 talismans that I have for you right here, they are a must, and they become this build into a monster. You're going to be using the Great Shield Talisman so that when you're attacking, at the same time that you're blocking and attacking, you're not taking that much god damage. The shield actually does have piercing damage, so it does has like thrusting damage. that's amazing, because at the end of the day it's a thrusting shield, and what do you know, the spear talisman is going to enhance the counterattacks unique to thrusting weapons. That being said, how did this work? Whenever you're doing damage, whenever you're in attack animation and the enemy is in attack animation at the same time, whenever you're trading damage with the enemy, this enhances your base damage while you're doing such a thing. And what do you know, with the shield you're always doing such a thing, and at the same time you're always two-handing your shield, because you don't have anything in your offhand nor in your main hands. So you always at all times have your two-handed sword talisman right here. Now, extra little recommendations that I advise for you to have. The Axe Talisman. The Axe Talisman works perfect with this right here. Sadly, we're not using the Shadow of Alexander, because the Ash of War that we'll talk about in a little while is not going to do any kind of damage for us. But you can have, like, overall this final slot. I do advise for you to have the Axe Talisman for that extra damage while you're doing charge attacks. But that final slot could be, like, for example, your support kind of talisman, your defense, Dragon Crest, Earth's Favor if you want to have heavy armor, or Grade Your Arsenal, or Turtle Talisman. Like, Turtle Talisman is actually a very nice thing to have with this build, because you're going to be consuming stamina like a maniac, because at the same time that you're attacking, you're also consuming the stamina that the enemy is causing onto the damage of your shield. Like I said, for some weird reason in the universe, this thing has tremendous, and I mean tremendous amounts of posture damage. So if you add, for example, the Crack Blade, that is going to increase the base damage of the shield, the posture damage of the shield, and I forgot to mention that this build has a native C scaling in strength and C scaling in dexterity. That's why we are building it towards quality, because at quality it has a B, that's going to yield you 360 more AR into the shield. On top of that, if you're fighting something that's weak to some type of element, then by all means, for some weird reason in the universe, the shield allows you to use, like, for example, the Flaming Strike, which is going to scale tremendously well with strength and dexterity. Or you can by all means use the Flame Spear, or anything that you're fighting out there in the world. At the end of the day, if you're fighting something against something that's not that resistant to ice, you can by all means use this right here, and then add the quality portion of the scaling of the shields. This shield is just monstrous, dude. It really is just monstrous. For the crystals, Crystal Tias, the Flasks of Wondrous Physique, you have the Stone Bob Clock Tia right here that makes the attacks more likely to break the enemy stances. In a mixed physique, like I said, this has tremendous poise damage, so more often than not you are going to be staggering bosses like thrice or even 4 times in a single boss fight because of how much stance damage you deal paired with this thing right here. I would say that it's a must to have the Grimburst Crystal Tier to temporarily boost the stamina recovery, because like I said, you're going to be consuming stamina like a maniac, but consequentially you can also add the Stamina Crystal Tier from the DLC, the one that negates the stamina consumption for 15 seconds. That's 15 seconds that you can block, and while you're blocking and perform the light attack, that's going to turn into a poking attack, something like a spear or a lance or a S-tuck from behind a shield, where you're blocking and attacking at the same time, and that's 15 seconds that you can spam that thing without having to worry about the stamina, and that you're going to have like a free knockdown from the enemies. So that's something that you can do. It's a little bit of a concession that you have right there. The shield is still pretty much monstrous. It does what it has to do. It's a very weird and funny weapon to use, because at the end of the day you're just attacking with a shield, dude. But it's very broken, because the frames where you have the shield lift up right there, they are just tremendously high. It's just so difficult for the enemy to trade with you. If you're spamming, of course, you are going to get staggered. You are going to get knocked out of the animation for blocking. So it's something that you have to be managing. But if you have like the Turtle Talisman, or you have the Grimburst Crystal Tier, it's just going to be manageable a little bit better. There's also a double hit Turtle Talisman DLC that furthermore enhances the stamina that you have, the stamina regeneration that you have right here. And like I said, you're just going to be staggering things for days. So the damage is decent. It's really decent damage. The poise stagger damage is just tremendously high, and the defensiveness that it has, it's just a overall triforce of a little broken thing that it's weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's weird looking, but it's also versatile because you can add any kind of Ash of War that you want on this shield if you do not want to be using Crackblade. That's very useful against enemies that don't have certain specific resistances. If you like the content, I like and never super appreciate it. And also that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person, you're into the gorgeous and beautiful person, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, have a beautiful day. I'll be seeing you beautiful people in the next one. Have a great day, goodbye.